if you are not able to assess the planets placed in the different houses and sign based on the true placements of the planets using the Bhav Chalit method, then you won't get the placement of the planets in the different houses with respect to signs right. Hello, Namaskar and Adab to all my friends from your friend astrologer and guide Irfan, once more with you from your very own channel Astro Assurance. Number of times I see in the comment section people write, do I see a planet placed in houses by virtue of seeing it in the D1 chart, the rising chart's placement, or do I see it in the Bhav Chalit chart? Now this can be a little confusing. Which house does my planet actually lie in? Are you able to ascertain the planet's placement right? Because if you are not able to ascertain the planet's placement right, specifically connected to a house, because we know which sign it is, then you may not be able to analyze the placement of the planet. You may not be able to analyze what kind of possibilities it is giving us, what probabilities it is giving us, what effects it is giving us, what results it is throwing up for us. If you are not able to do that, then how would we know what actions to take, what decisions to make, which direction to move in, whether to marry that person or not, whether to take action in this particular dasha or not, or in this transit or not? Is my planet going over my 8th house or is it going over my 9th house? Because there is a vast difference between a planet transiting through the 8th house versus the 9th house and transiting through a certain sign versus the other. Now I have made a number of videos already, planets placed in different houses, planets placed in different signs, and I have also made one video on how to use the Bhav Chalit chart. However, I still get a number of people asking for clarifications about the Bhav Chalit. Today I will give you a very elaborate, though short video, but an elaborate one and a very easy one, how to analyze your planetary placements using both your D1 rising charts placement, the planet's placement in certain signs, and how to know exactly which bhava the planet is placed in. Now let's say a person is born in the Leo ascendant. So now we know that the person's ascendant is of the Leo sign, so which is ruled by Sun. And if the person is born in the Leo sign, say for example, we know that we should look at the house placement having 30 degrees. So if you are looking at a placement from 0 degrees, which means according to the scale, the previous 15 degrees lie in the previous sign and the next 15 degrees from the degree of the ascendant lies in the next sign. This is if the ascendant is at 0 degrees, not in any other degrees. So if the ascendant is at 0 degrees, specifically say here we are talking about Leo, if it's at 0 degrees, then the previous 15 degrees lie in the Cancer sign and the next 15 degrees lie in the Leo sign. So let's take a specific example. Let's say the Leo ascendant for this particular native lies at 1 degrees. Now because it lies at 1 degrees, we cannot take the scale at 0 in the center of Leo and 15 degrees on either side, which means 15 of the previous Cancer sign, which is 15 to 30 degrees, and the next 15 degrees of Leo, 0 to 15 degrees. Specifically, if you are making and cutting down the first house of the ascendant into exactly in the center, then if it's at 0 degrees, then the 15 degrees, the previous 15 degrees should lie in the Cancer sign, which is 15 degrees of Cancer to 30 degrees of Cancer, and 0 to 15 degrees should be of Leo because the person is at 0 degrees. However, if the person is born at 1 degree of the ascendant of Leo, that means you can't take 0 as the center, but we need to take 1 degree as the center at which we start, which obviously means that the previous 15 degrees will have 1 degree of the Leo ascendant and 14 degrees of Cancer, and then the next 15 degrees of the Leo ascendant. So 0 to 1 degree of Leo will lie in the previous, and 16 to 30 degrees of Cancer will lie in the previous part, if you're dividing the Leo house or the first house or Leo sign into two. I mean the house rather than the sign. And the second half of the first house would have the 1 degree to 16 degrees, which is 15 degrees. So the previous 15 degrees of the first house, not of the Leo sign. Here we are talking of the first house. So the first house will have 16 to 30 degrees of Cancer, which means 14 degrees of the Cancer sign, and 0 to 1 degree of Leo, and it will have 1 degree to 16 degrees of the Leo sign, which is the other 15 degrees. So this is how roughly the division will look like, with 1 degree of Leo overlapping into the previous part of the first house, and 14, the last 14 degrees of Cancer, 16 to 30 degrees lying in the first half of the first house, and the next part or the other half of the first house having 15 degrees, which means from 1 degree to the 15 degree. So this is how the makeup of the first house will be, and this is how the previous part of the first house will have a major part of Cancer sign, which is 14 degrees and 1 degree of Leo, and the second part of the first house, the second half of the first house will have 15 degrees of Leo sign, 1 to 16 degrees. So now we have 15 degrees each, depending on how the ascendant lies, at what degree the ascendant lies. So now if you are putting the signs into the respective ascendant based on how they lie in the horoscope basis, which is the degree of the ascendant. So here I put number 1 in the first house, though it is the Leo sign. You can see 5 years, so Leo sign, but I just mentioned the houses here for ease. So this is the first house, this is the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, so on, where first house has the sign of Leo, then second is Virgo, then third is Libra, then Scorpio, and so on. And you have put in the signs. So if you look at how the signs are placed, Cancer sign is overlapping between the 12th house and the first house, with major part of the Cancer sign, because we have divided the signs also through with the divisions of the arrows. Major part of the Cancer sign lies in the 12th house, and 40%, roughly 40% lies in the first house. Then major part of the Leo sign lies in the first house, and remaining 40% in the second house. Then major part of the Virgo sign lies in the first house, and remaining 40% or 14 degrees in the next house, which is the third house, and so on for all the 12 houses. So each of the signs is overlapping 2 houses. The previous part is 60%, and roughly 40% is the next part of the next house. So now once you make this division and see the overlaps, even the Leo sign, if you see, though the ascendant is Leo, it is not lying in the first house, but major part is in the first house, which is roughly 60%, 16 degrees, and the rest of the 14 degrees lies in the second house. So once you do the division, that's how you are placing the signs in all the houses, or overlapping. Then if you look at the center of the first house, the center of the first house still has some part of Leo overlapping into the first part or the first half of the first house. Remaining part is occupied by the remaining 15 degrees of Leo sign, from 1 degree to 16 degrees. Now if you are dividing it into, or making it easy for us to understand each house basis, what is the part of which sign lies in it. So you will see, for the first house, the previous 14 degrees of Cancer lie here, and from 1 degree to 16 degrees or 0 to 16 degrees of Leo. So we have overlapped also basis the center of the house, to show that 14 degrees of Cancer lie in the first house and 16 degrees of Leo lie in the first house. Similarly, 14 degrees of Leo lie in the second house, and 16 degrees of Virgo lie in the second house. Then 14 degrees of Virgo lie in the third house, and 16 degrees of Libra lie in the third house, and so on for all the signs. And this is how it should be. Now this looks a little confusing, because the first house I couldn't put the bifurcation part outside, so I put it inside. So these 2 arcs are for the first house, these 2 arcs are for the fourth house, these 2 arcs are for the 7th house, these 2 arcs are for the 10th house, whereas for the rest of the houses the arcs lie outside to show the division. Now if you have planetary placements that you need to add, Say Sun is at 19 degrees of Aquarius. So if Sun is at 19 degrees of Aquarius, then it has to lie between 16 to 30 degrees of Aquarius. However, 16 to 30 degrees of Aquarius doesn't lie in the 7th house. The 7th house surely has the Aquarius sign, but Aquarius sign overlaps. The major part of 60% of Aquarius lies in the 7th house, and rest of the 40% of 14 degrees lies in the 8th house. And because Sun is at 19 degrees of Aquarius, so it goes into the 8th house while lying in the Aquarius sign. This differentiation is very, very important. When you go to the Bhav Chalit chart, sometimes the chart is shown us with the planets placement shown in brackets. Sometimes it can be confusing. So when you make a horoscope, and you make a horoscope similar to this, first you have the horoscope, have the ascendant, then divide each of the houses respect to signs, and then put the planets by virtue of what degrees they are. Then you will be able to get the more true positions of the planets. Then let's see Moon. So in a way we can say Sun while lying in the 7th house by virtue of the sign, but its actual placement, its true placement is in Aquarius but in the 8th house. Now Moon at 6 degrees of Sagittarius. So Moon at 6 degrees of Sagittarius, which means it lies between the 1 degrees to 16 degrees of Sagittarius. So you can see Moon here at the other half of the 5th house, almost closer to the cusp. Then if you see Mars lies at 4 degrees of Aries. 4 degrees of Aries lies in the second part of the 9th house, and it's lying closer to the cusp also. Then if you see Mercury lies 2 degrees of Aquarius. So Mercury lies in the 7th house and in the 7th sign, which is Aquarius. Then if you see Jupiter is retrograde. So keep this in mind when you analyze results. And at 13 degrees in Libra. 13 degrees of Libra lie in the second part of the 3rd house. So Jupiter lies between 0 to 16 degrees or 13 degrees of Libra. Then Venus lies at 28 degrees of Aquarius. 28 degrees is almost in the center of the house, because 28 degrees is pretty close to 1 degree. So any planet which lies 5 degrees on either side of the ascendant's degree. The ascendant is at 1 degree. So 1 to 6 degrees any planet place is fairly lying closer to the center, and 1 degree is to, or the previous 5 degrees, which is say for example between 26 degrees to 1 degree of the next sign, the planet lies closer to the center. The planet's placement is very, very strong. So in a way you can say Moon's 6 degrees is very strong, Mars 4 degrees is very, very strong, Mercury's 2 degrees is very, very strong, Libra's 28 degrees is also very strong because they are closer to the center of the house. Then Saturn has 12 degrees of Aries. Saturn at 12 degrees of Aries, which comes between 0 to 16 degrees. So it lies in the 9th house, but in the second half of the Aries. Rahu at 19 degrees of Aquarius, which is very close to Sun's degree, so it is completely eclipsing the Sun. And then Ketu at 19 degrees. Ketu at 19 degrees in the Leo sign, but 19 degrees of Leo sign goes into the second house, so Ketu goes into the second house. So if you look at the D1 rising chart, Ketu will be seen in the lagna, but if you look at the Bhav Chalit, they will give you Ketu's placement in the sign of Leo, so it may be confusing. So make a horoscope, divide your houses into degrees like this, and then place your planets basis their degrees. And for example, if you see Ketu, which is at 19 degrees, which is lying closer to the cusp, closer to the boundary of the houses, so that's why I put it as close to the first part of the first house than, say for example, the other planets. So Mercury, for example, I've kept almost in the center because Mercury is at 2 degrees and very, very close to the ascendant degrees, for example. Similarly, Mars is pretty close to the center, whereas Saturn is to the periphery. Similarly, Venus is closer to the center, whereas Sun and Rahu are to the periphery or to the edge of or the boundary between the houses. So that's how you place the planets in different houses by virtue of overlapping the sign, then seeing the true placement of the planets and also the pseudo placement, if I can use the term, where they are shown in a certain sign but they go into the different house. So here if you see Sun Rahu, Venus and Ketu. These are the 4 planetary energies which lie in a certain sign, but they go into the next house. So now my friends, this is the homework given to you. Let's see how you are able to analyze this particular horoscope. You know the ascendant degree, you know the overlaps of the houses, you know what is the placement of each degree of each planet. Let's say this person is right now in his Rahu and Saturn Dasha. So now that we know that Saturn is going to get into Aquarius in a few days, let's see how you can analyze Saturn's current placement in the natal chart and coming the transit, when the transit is going to happen, how you will analyze combining the birth placement of Saturn and when it goes into its transit, how you analyze that. Let's put into the comment section. Same thing please do for the Jupiter's placement. We know Jupiter is retrograde and placed in the 3rd house in the Libra sign. Now when you are analyzing Jupiter's placement, analyze for its birth placement and when the transit of Jupiter is going to happen in roughly 3 months from now, 4 months from now, when it is going to move into the next sign of Aries, then how Jupiter will give you different kinds of results, what will be its manifestation, keeping in mind that it is retrograde, also keeping in mind what houses it rules in the respective horoscope, in this particular horoscope. Same thing analyze for Rahu and Ketu's transit, which is going to happen fag end of the year, roughly 31st of October or 1st of November is when Rahu and Ketu are going to transit into the Virgo sign and the Pisces sign respectively. So make your analysis, write your predictions for this particular person, tell us what would be the trajectory of the person's life so far, what he would be doing, what he would be studying, what would be his challenges, what would be his marital status, what would be his work area, whether he is working in his native land or he is working in some other place, what would be his relationship with his parents, with his siblings and with his friends, whether he would have a love marriage or arranged marriage or whatever you want. Whatever predictions come to you, please put it in the comment section and also predict. So one, predict so far what must have happened in his life so far, or what do you see in his life so far, and after the transit what trajectory he may take, keeping in mind that Rahu and Saturn Dasha is going to be there for the next 3 years. Analyze this particular horoscope for both the natal placements and the transits, keeping in mind the planetary placements, their dignities. Let's see how many of you get it right. I will try and respond to your comments if you have made the analysis for the horoscope, or if you need any more further clarification on the Bhav Chalit chart, to see whether you have got any of it right. And let's see over the course of the next 2 to 3 years whether any of your predictions for this particular person have come right. So friends, like this video, share this video, and if you're looking for a personal consultation from me, reach out to me at the links given below. Until some other time with some other video, this is your friend astrologer and guide Irfan signing off. Ciao.